In this video, I'm going to assess an IELTS essay which was written in response to this question. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task, write about the following topic. Many museums charge for admission, while others are free. Do you think the advantages of charging people for admission to museums outweigh the disadvantages? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. Write at least 250 words. And here is the answer to the question. Museums are unique places where you get to experience the history from past to the latest technology. However, admission is required when entering. Museums are popular places to go to on weekends with family or friends. Admissions are one of the funds which keeps the museum running and also to maintain its exhibits. Without admission, museums would be dirty, poorly maintained, and likely impossible to operate unless funded from government or charity. However, admissions are one thing which may keep the customer from entering. Usually we have to pay around $30 for admissions. Children or family which doesn't earn much simply cannot afford such amount. They will go to museum which is free, or even not go and experience the greatness of the museum, which I think is horrible because it should be open for everyone. I think having an admission is a disadvantage since museums should be open for everyone, but admissions are essential for running the museums. So I think it is very important to come up with a plan so that museums could be operated but also be admission free, such as government funding or doing a charity. Auckland Museum is one great example. It is one of the biggest museums in New Zealand, but it is also free of admission since it's government funded. So overall, I think it's quite a good response to the task. It's got, in paragraph 2, it talks about the advantages of admissions charges. Here, the disadvantages of admissions charges. Here, the opinion is clearly stated. But there's not an awful lot of signposting language, cohesive devices, to tell me what's about to be written. So in paragraph 2, I don't know that the writer is going to write about the advantages of admissions charges until they actually get into the paragraph. So that's a bit of a problem. It could say maybe here there are many advantages to admissions charges. Instead, it actually starts off with this general statement, and this would be better off in the previous paragraph in the introduction. So let's look at how this essay can be assessed against the banned descriptors used by IELTS examiners. Let's look at, first of all, the task response descriptors. I'm just going to zoom in here. So, certainly going to pass a band 4. Is it a band 5? Addresses the task only partially. The format may be inappropriate. I think it's better than this. It's fairly well covered. It's covered all the main points. So I think it's better than a 5. Is it a 6? Addresses all parts of the task. Yes, it does, although some parts may be more fully covered than others. I think the coverage is fairly balanced, so it could be better than this. Relevant position, yes, there's an opinion. Conclusions may become unclear or repetitive. Not really. The opinion's quite good. Presents relevant main ideas, but some may be inadequately developed or unclear. Inadequately developed, yes. This essay is, I think the ideas are inadequately developed. The ideas could be expanded with specific examples. So, for example, in paragraph 2, the writer could write an example of a free local museum which is dirty and under-maintained, just to support this argument here. So it needs an example. Similarly here, there could be an example in paragraph 3 of a museum which does charge an entrance fee and is almost always empty. And you can make up an example of that. So it needs an example to support the ideas. So I would say that this is definitely a Band 6 essay for task response. But how many words are in this? Okay, it's actually only 220 words. 220 words. It's below the word count of 250, which means that I must reduce the task response score by 1. It doesn't have enough words. So it's a Band 5. It would have been a Band 6, but with another, needed 30 more words to get a Band 6. Let's look at coherence and cohesion now. So let's go down to Band 4. Presents information and ideas, yes, but these are not arranged coherently. They are arranged coherently, and there is clear progression, so it's better than this. So let's go up. Presents information with some organization, yes, but there may be a lack of overall progression. No, there is overall progression, that's okay. It's better than this, but makes inadequate, inaccurate, or overuse of cohesive devices. Cohesive devices, let's have a look what cohesive devices are used here, because when I was reading it, that's one thing that stood out, that there weren't many. So we've got however, usually, we've got so as well, since, but, and so that. So there are some cohesive devices there. I just feel that there needs to be more signposting, especially at the start of paragraph 2. So that's one problem area. So it's inadequate use of cohesive devices, I think. Maybe repetitive because of lack of referencing. There is quite a bit of referencing in this essay. So in paragraph 3, we've got they, which refers back to children or family. And in paragraph 4, it refers back to Auckland Museum. And you've got it here again, and it again referring back to Auckland Museum. So there is some accurate use of referencing, but not much referencing. So I wouldn't say lack of referencing. So it's possibly up here, let's have a look. Arranges information and ideas coherently, yes. Clear overall progression, yes. Uses cohesive devices effectively. I'm not sure about that one. I would tend to go for this level, which is a Band 5. But some examiners might give this a Band 6. It depends whether or not they think cohesive devices are used effectively. They're certainly not faulty. There's not mistakes being made with them. So it's a tricky one. I would say a Band 5, though. It's a Band 5 or possibly a Band 6. Lexical resource next. With lexical resource, we're looking for, certainly for a Band 7, we're looking for precise language, good collocations, variety in the use of language, not too many mistakes, easy to understand, so the language should not get in the way of communication. So let's have a look at some of the language used in this essay. Some positive things, we've got unique places. You've got popular places, although you've got places repeated here. The writer could use a different word instead of this. You've also got exhibits, but I'll come back to this. Poorly maintained, that's a good collocation as well. But again, I'll come back to this. Funds is another good use, a good piece of language. In paragraph 3, you've got afford. I also like the language open for everyone. And in paragraph 4, come up with a plan. That's quite a nice piece of language too. I think one problem, though, with the essay is the overuse of admission. So you've got the word here, admission, admissions here, admission, admissions, admission. So admission again. So the word admission has been used many, many times, and it appears in the task question, and you want to try and avoid using words in the task if at all possible. So instead, the writer could have used phrases like entrance fee or entrance charge, and they've also used the word incorrectly. Admissions are one thing which may keep the customer from entering. It's not admissions. An admission is when you enter a building. The writer should be writing admission charges. So having an admission charge is a disadvantage. So the word is actually being repeated a lot, and it's used incorrectly as well. There's not too much to say negatively about the use of language. The language is quite natural. There is one other point, though, I would bring up, is the word horrible. I think is horrible. This is a very emotive language, so the register is not correct for an essay, for an academic essay. You wouldn't write I think is horrible in an academic essay. So you want to try and keep your emotions out of it. So I would say here, even not to go and experience the greatness of the museum, which I think should be open for everyone. Also, doing a charity is not a natural collocation. We would say running a charity. There are a few spelling mistakes as well. Exhibits should have an H here. Poorly maintained, poorly, is spelt like this. And also government. Now we say government, but there's actually an N hiding in the word. And the word government is also misspelt further down. So you've got a few. So this writer's got a few spelling mistakes as well. So I think overall, while the writing, the vocabulary is easy to understand, and there's not too many examples of unnatural language, there is a general lack of flexibility and precise language. One other thing I wanted to point out as well is the greatness of the museum. That's not very natural language. So how does this compare with the banned descriptors? Limited range of vocabulary, possibly, but that's okay, maybe limited. Noticeable errors in spelling, that may cause some difficulty for the reader. No, I can understand the essay. This is one of the big differences between a band 5 and a band 6. That band 5 may cause some difficulty, but band 6, they do not impede communication, so it's probably more like a band 6. Adequate range of vocabulary, yes. Attempts to use less common vocabulary, yes. Some inaccuracy, yes. So it looks like a band 6. Is it a band 7? Sufficient? Possibly. Flexibility and precision? No. So it's going to be a band 6 for lexical resource. Grammar, grammatical range and accuracy next. Let's have a look. Admission is required, so you've got a passive there. And there's also a few uses of relative clauses, which keeps, so funds, which keeps. So the relative clause there, however, it should be funds which keep the museum running. Funds keep. And some relative clauses here, which, so that museum which is free. There's a few errors with the use of articles. Should be, they will go to a museum which is free. And also nearer the top, the history. I would simply write to experience history from past. And it should also be the past. There's a nice sentence starter in paragraph 2 without admission, so that's a good thing. Would be, another good use of grammar. In paragraph 3, which may here. But also an error which doesn't. So children or family is plural, so which don't earn much. And in paragraph 4, there is so there is a dependent clause here, a plan so that. So there are some complex sentences, not too many mistakes, good overall control of grammar, very few errors, but not a great variety of structures, no conditionals, not many dependent clauses. So how does that compare with the band descriptors? So this is a band 6 over here, band 5, band 4, very limited. No, it's not very limited. Rare use. No, there are a few relative clauses. Limited range of structures. I would say yes, it is limited. Attempts complex sentences, yes, but these tend to be less accurate than simple sentences. I think they're used accurately. Frequent grammatical errors. No. And again, we've got this issue of can cause some difficulty. Do the grammatical errors cause difficulty for the reader? No, they don't. And up here there may be grammatical errors, but they rarely reduce communication. So I think we're up here. There is a mix of simple and complex sentence forms. There could be more. So we're definitely at a band 6. Are we at a band 7? Uses a variety. No, you would need a wider range, things like conditionals, to have a variety of complex structures. So we're definitely at a band 6 for grammar, which means that the overall band score is 5.5. The writer would have got a band 6 if they had written 30 words more, because it's the task response that affected it. Task response there, if that was a 6, you would get 5.75 overall, which is rounded up to a 6. So that's the difference between a 6 and a 5.5. It was the lack of words. Had the writer simply done a word count, they would have noticed they had to write 30 words more. Maybe they ran out of time, but that was the difference between a 5.5 and a 6. So there's the score for this essay. Hope that helps.